I'm saying officially right now, it is an emergency. It's a national emergency. We're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money on the opioid crisis.
The CDC says more than 33,000 Americans died from opioid-related overdoses in 2015 alone.
According to the CDC, 142 people a day are dying in America.
The opioid epidemic is stretching across the nation and is affecting Connecticut citizens rapidly. Federal government attorney Robert Spector works closely with the DEA in prosecuting opioid cases.
In 1 year, we handled 60 separate cases. I had never done one of the cases before. I handled probably 20 cases, which for me, that was a lot. In comparison, in the last 5 years before 2016, we'd maybe handled two cases.
Take a look at this map about what it looked like in 1999. And here's how it looked in 2015, just 16 years later. The CDC says more than 33,000 Americans died from opioid-related overdoses in 2015 alone.
Linda Kaufman, nurse of over 30 years, recalls the start of the crisis and how she believes it began.
Probably midway through my career, you know, it came out in some patient surveys that maybe people weren't paying enough attention to pain management. And I think doctors thought they were doing the right thing when they were writing out prescriptions for pain medications, not realizing how addictive some of these medications could be.
Prescription opioids can be addictive and dangerous. It only takes a little to lose a lot.
The crisis has grown so rapidly that the death toll of opioids has surpassed the most common forms of death.
In 2017, for example, we're going to lose about 1,100 people, which is it's just an unbelievably large amount. But if you think of trying to, you know, come up with, well, what does that mean? We will lose probably 300 people this year from car accidents, maybe a little less than 400 from suicide, and less than 100 from murder. Which means if you combine all those three numbers together, you have about 800 people. Still less than the total number of people that will die from overdoses.
According to the CDC, 142 people a day are dying in America of drug overdoses. This means, Jake, that we have a 9/11 scale loss of life every 3 weeks.
Dating back to 2000, opioids have exploded to the #1 drug-caused death, most recently surpassing heroin in 2015.
Would you put a blame on anyone, or any specific person, the companies?
You know, I think there's, in some ways, it's a perfect storm. You know, the first bad event is that we have become essentially addicted or used to prescription medication that's very dangerous. You know, the prescription pills that our young people are using, Xanax, Valium, Vicodin. You know, we're the only country in the world that uses Vicodin to treat pain. We're 99% of the Vicodin market. So that's astounding, considering that if you were to play baseball and break your ankle on the baseball field, they'd probably give you Vicodin here. If you did that in Great Britain, they wouldn't. So that's the one storm that's been brewing for a long time and is really starting to take off. The other storm is fentanyl.
We take you inside the battle against a deadly narcotic, a synthetic painkiller 100 times more powerful than morphine. As a street drug, it's far more potent than even the purest forms of heroin. Fentanyl is taking the opioid epidemic to a new level of urgency.
Fentanyl is growing with the opioid crisis and is most commonly mixed with heroin. As the crisis grows, fentanyl is being laced with street drugs such as weed and cocaine.
They're not what you think they are. So you may get some Xanax and think you're using Xanax, and in fact it's fake and it's fentanyl. Or you may get an oxycodone and you think it's oxycodone, but it's fake and it's fentanyl or even heroin. And so we have people putting things in their bodies that they think it's supposed to do one thing and it does something completely different.
It's like a Russian roulette too, because now the drugs, you know, Jeffrey died of an overdose, but it was the heroin mixed with fentanyl. It's big in the news now, and they're cutting it into everything, and that's what killed him. You can't, not against this. So where she's at right now,
Local Shoreline resident Karen Seifer has faced the reality of her 2 children falling into the trap of opioids.
I found out that they were both addicts in September of 2009. And by a girlfriend's, one of my best friend's daughter was friends with Jeffrey and wanted to see me. And she pulled me aside and said, all of Jeffrey's friends are really worried about him. He's snorting pills. And which seemed unfathomable to me. He went to college at Central, and he was a great student, and he got hired right out of college at Cigna. And at that time that she told me in September of '09, he was making almost $100,000 a year. He was married to his high school sweetheart. He had a beautiful house in West Hartford. He had a dog, tons of friends, and he was an addict. So we went up there, my ex and I went up there to confront him and ask him what was going on, and he said, "It's all fixed, Mom, it's all fixed. I'm on Suboxone." And I said, "Oh, whew, okay." And so I stopped at my daughter's house on the way home to say, "Did you know that Jeffrey was an addict?" And she said, "Yeah, Mom, me too." Now, if I thought it was unfathomable that Jeffrey was an addict, to think that she was even more so, because she was a mom to 3 kids. She was a real estate agent, she was married, had a house. And you don't understand it because that's not the life that they grew up in. We were a great family. We did all family things together, vacations and Sunday dinners, and I'm very active in the school and all that. And so it just shouldn't happen to us, other people.
Right.
Other people, not us.
On top of addiction, Jeffrey resorted to stealing and was sent to prison for 14 months. When first released, Karen knew a tragic end was near.
He was sober, right, because he was in jail. And so I said to the waiter, take away, I got there before Jeffrey, I said, "Take away the wine glasses, you don't need that, we don't need the menu, blah, blah, blah." Jeffrey comes down, sits down, and he says, "Can I have a glass of red wine?" And it was at that moment that I knew I was going to lose him. I knew for a fact that I was going to lose him, because if he couldn't forego one glass of wine, he was in jail for 14 months. If he wasn't sober, he was never going to be sober.
The day of Jeffrey's death came on the morning of December 23rd, 2016.
He was living at my ex's house. I said my ex is a cop, and he saw the light underneath Jeffrey's bedroom door. It was like 6 a.m. He was getting ready for work, and he knocked on the door and he said, "Jeff, you okay?" And Jeffrey mumbled, something incoherently. And I said, "Okay." And so he left, he went to work, and around 9 o'clock he just didn't feel right. Something was not right. So he texted Jeffrey, and Jeffrey never answered. So he went home, and the door was locked, the bedroom door was locked. And so he, broke down, got into it, and Jeffrey was half lying on the bed, and he was gone. And he tried to resuscitate him, and he did not have Narcan.
Not with him.
Mm-mm. And so he called 911, and the state police came right away and gave him Narcan. Called me, and I couldn't even understand him. He was screaming, and I could not understand what he was saying. And I was supposed to have, this is how it all worked, I was supposed to have my friends over, Killingworth friends. And Jeffrey's dad called me up, and he's screaming, and I think he might be dead, I think he might be dead. I said, call 911, call the ambulance. He said, "I did." And I said, "Okay, I'll be there." And I ran upstairs, shut off the tree. I ran back to the kitchen, so methodically, very I was having them over for lunch. I had made some soups, shut the soups off. I called my girlfriend and said, "You know what, call everybody else. You guys can't come for lunch. Jeffrey OD'd, he might be dead, I don't know." Now, she lives here in Killingworth. I live in Westbrook. She said, I'm right in Clinton at the store. Don't go anywhere, I'll bring you to Essex. Don't go, because I was going to drive myself, thinking I was of sane mind. Of course, I wasn't.
Right.
And she was there within 5 minutes, and she brought me to the house, and they were working on him, and then they brought him to the clinic, and then they pronounced him there.
Before Jeffrey's death, Karen and her son had created a Facebook page that raised awareness of addiction. After his passing, Karen posted a video to show that what was happening was real.
The originator of this Facebook page, Love the Addict, Hate the Disease, and I truly love the addict. My son Jeffrey, as you have seen in past posts, just passed away on Friday from a heroin overdose. And I'm sharing this video not for more sympathy, because God knows everybody has given me tons and tons of sympathy and heartfelt notes, and I'm so appreciative. But I'm sharing it because I want other parents to know that it's okay that you talk about your children and their struggles that they're having. It's okay to reach out to other people, because I really truly feel that once we reach out to more people, the more we share our story or our children's story, the more that maybe we can help change the face of the addiction.
I can't tell you not to try anything. No one's going to, you're 18 years old, 17 years old, you're not going to listen to a 60-year-old woman. But don't ever try heroin, because the one time, it just takes once. The one time, one and done. You're one and done. You don't see too many old addicts, right. You know? There are not a lot of old addicts hanging around. There's a lot of old drunks. You'll see those all over the place. Mm-hmm. You don't see a lot of old addicts. There's a reason for it. They either die or they get sober. Right. That's it. Because you're going to continue to use, you're going to die. So you either die or you get sober.
As Americans, we cannot allow this to continue. It is time to liberate our communities from the scourge of drug addiction. Never been this way. We can be the generation that ends the opioid epidemic. We can do it.
With no clear end in sight, Karen Cipher knows what her mission and contribution will be to end the epidemic.
I want other parents to know they're not alone. Right. I want other parents to not feel as shitty as I felt all those years. I want other parents to realize that it's not their fault and that there's nothing that they can do other than love them and support them. You can't make them stop using. You can't force them into a rehab and expect that to work. We tried with Jeffrey. If I can have, I decided, you know, it was a big secret. I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. And then I started sharing it. And the minute I started sharing it, other people shared. And then other people shared. And I realized that everyone is affected. It doesn't matter if you live in Essex or Killingworth or whatever town. These towns have a big issue, you know, and everybody doesn't want to talk about it because not in our town. We're not in the inner cities. You know, we're not in the inner cities. You think it's not going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah, everywhere.
Everywhere. Everywhere. And so the more I talk about it, the more I find other people that were afraid to talk about it, and then they feel better because they're talking about it. And I just want to keep spreading the word that, you know, it could be you. Mm-hmm. It could be you. It could be anybody. And to help bring awareness so we stop the stigma.